Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about standards organizations. So here are some of the standard organizations we're going to be talking about. I'll talk about each one of these individually, but I want to talk about the importance of having standards in these standards organizations. First of all, because of having these open standards, it allows us to have hardware and software that is freely interchangeable and interoperates with each other as long as they abide by the standards. For example, I'm using my Macintosh computer here, and I might be using a Chrome web browser by Google. I have might have a wireless network interface card that's by Intel that it connects to my Linksys wireless router that connects upstream to perhaps a Juniper router that connects to a Cisco router. So all of these are different companies and different, obviously, and they abide by the standards. Is what allows us to have networks that can use software and hardware from various companies. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these organizations. And it's important to recognize these because in your network career and as you get a job and working in the industry, you're going to be seeing these organizations. So ISOC. So ISOC stands for Internet Society. They pretty much manage, and I'm going to talk about ISOC, IAB, Ietf, and IRTF. And they're basically responsible for the TCP/IP suite of protocols. So the upper layers, from the network layer to the application layer that you see over here. The ISOC is kind of the legal corporate arm of the internet. So they manage kind of any legal requirements and manage the IAB that we'll talk about. And they're kind of the oversight arm of the internet. There's some wonderful books that talk about these. One is on protocol development that I'll talk about in a later course or later video. But Google some of these organizations and you'll get kind of a sense. And as you're in the networking field, you'll see how what ISOC does, what IAB, and some of these others. Okay, let's get to the IAB. IAB is the Internet Architecture Board. They are responsible for the overall management and development of Internet standards. So as you can see in the chart here on the right, they manage the Ietf and the IRTF. We'll talk about both those in a moment. But they pretty much manage what standards are being developed and what standards are being ultimately get approved, and kind of the overall direction of the internet. And of course, they take a lot of their guidance from ISOC. Okay, the Ietf, Internet Engineering Task Force. So you'll hear probably when dealing with the TCP/IP protocol suite, this is the group that you'll recognize or hear the most from. They are the ones that are responsible for developing, maintaining, updating TCP/IP protocols. So all these protocols that you see, everything from IP, TCP, HTTP, dozens and dozens and dozens of protocols that we don't even list here. They're the ones that are responsible for the development of these through things called working groups and the ultimate approval of a draft, what we call a draft RFC, request for comments, that perhaps will ultimately become what's known as a standard. So an RFC is a request for comments. We'll talk more about these as we look at these protocols. But every internet protocol has an RFC. And in that RFC, it describes what the specifications are for that protocol. So that allows any hardware or software vendor to go ahead and implement that standard. Okay, another group is the IRTF. They're the Internet Research Task Force. They're more focused on the long-term research related to the internet and TCP/IP. Okay, looking at the lower part of the stack, the physical and data link, we have organizations like IEEE. So we'll be talking a lot about them when we talk about Ethernet. So they focus on the physical and data link, and you can see some of the working groups and some of the protocol specifications listed there on the right. You might recognize 802.11, okay? 802.11n, 802.11g, 802.11ac, whatever it might be, but that's for the wireless. We'll be talking about 802.2 and 802.3 as it relates to Ethernet. And there's many others as well. Okay, some other standards organizations just kind of mention here. We have, let me mention these two, EIA, TIA. So EIA and TIA, they are related a lot to, let me circle TIA here. So we see them related a lot to things like cabling, rack mounts, size of racks, those kinds of physical specifications. So they work a lot at the physical layer. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, ICANN and IANA. ICANN and IANA are, they are responsible, they are two organizations that are within kind of the realm of, well, are within the realm of ISOC, but organizations that are responsible for coordinating the maintenance and the procedures that involve things like namespaces, domain name system servers, we'll talk about DNS later, and IP address space, both IPv4 and IPv6. So we'll talk about those things a little later, but these are some of the organizations that you just need to kind of understand, be familiar with. All right, let's take a look at one more here. And that's good old ISO that we've seen before. ISO, which stands for the International Organization for Standardization. We think of them mostly nowadays, well, most people in networking, as the OSI model. As I have mentioned before, ISO is not an acronym for the name of the organization, but based on the Greek word isos, meaning equal. They were initially responsible, or one of their responsibilities back in the, oh gosh, when was it? Probably the late 70s and into the 1980s. They were developing the protocol suite for the internet and actually had developed an OSI suite of protocols. But by the mid-1990s, TCP/IP was pretty well entrenched. And there were some, let's say, heated discussions between the ISO OSI group and those that supported that suite of protocols and those that supported TCP/IP, with TCP/IP ultimately winning out, of course, as we know. The OSI protocol suite is still around, and actually there are some protocols that are still in use by in today's networks, but that's for a later discussion. All right, so the key thing here that I want you to kind of recognize from all of this is that these standard organizations are very important. It's what allows us to have an open source internet, and what I mean by that, by adapting these standards, any company, organization can develop hardware or software to build their own routers, to build their own Ethernet switches, their own network operating systems, their own applications, whatever. And it's what allows us to not rely on any one single vendor for our network solution. So it also encourages competition and innovation. All right. Thank you very much.